pastoral enrichment. It's going to take time, but we have already made strong steps ahead, which are going to help us see authentic changes. I do see some fruit. As I was saying earlier, the first was listening. The second, undoubtedly, has to do with our work in the small groups. And it is essential, particularly for a person with disabilities. A person like me, myself. For persons like myself, it's not easy to speak. Often we are not even listened to, and this happens often with the bishops and cardinals. Sometimes it's very difficult to be received and to be listened to. And once you manage to, climb this mountain, but when you get to the end, you do see some paternalistic gestures, patronizing. You are received with tenderness. You are blessed, but then here the reality is different. Then the Synod is very much pedagogical in character. Hierarchy is realizing that it is possible to have a dialogue and listening, and it isn't just a matter of listening, and we were saying that earlier. It's a dialogue. It's how are you? What are your needs? This is essential to be able to focus on this, because then when the members of the Synod are going to go back home and they go back to being in contact with persons with disabilities, or maybe they will go to places where there are no toilets for persons with disabilities, I am sure that all the members will see something that perhaps before they wouldn't have noticed. So the visibility and presence are very visible fruits. And I think, as Sister Maria was saying, from now on to 2024, we are going to continue journeying together, and we hope that there truly is a change in the Church's structures. It isn't just a matter of being part of the assemblies little by little, but what I mean is that it's important for our participation to be real. It is a structural matter. Starting from Rome, this will have to be expressed through the works of the episcopal conferences and in the parishes. So it's going to be essential to have a presence which is based on communion. We must be actors of evangelization. All of us already see many fruits. Thank you. Thank you for your words. Diane.
Diane Montagna, the Catholic Herald. Two questions. The first for Paolo Ruffini, Dr. Ruffini. I've asked this before, but two questions on procedure. Regarding the synthesis report that will come out at the end of this synod, can you tell us anything about what number one, content, what will the synod members be voting on? Will they be voting on a proposal, voting yay or nay to a particular proposal? Or will they be voting, is this an accurate reflection of the conversation that we had during the synod? The second question would be, given that this is the first assembly that has allowed the voting to lay people, will we be given a breakdown of how many bishops voted for a particular point and how many of the laity or non-episcopal members voted for a particular point? Without names, of course, but just a general breakdown.
This was the first question. You had a second one.
I did have a second question.
Questa era tutta la prima.
Questa è la prima.
Questa è la prima.
Yes, the second
one. So perhaps for Father Abbot, since you're a priest, we know that there are both bishops and laity at the Synod who are pushing for women's ordination. It's mentioned in the Instrumentum Laboris as a women's inclusion in the diaconate. Some say that the push for women deacons in the Synod is no different from the feminist push for women deacons in the Anglican Communion, which led to women priests and bishops. How is this not a step to further ordination? Thank you.
Thank you. Cominciamo da Paolo Ruffini, poi...
Prime due domande contenute in una...
Ruffini. The final report has not been drafted yet, so I cannot say anything. We are just halfway through our journey, so there are some segments that have not been addressed yet. And the debate, the conversation in the spirit during the congregations and in the small groups, well, at this moment, we are truly trying to find points of convergence and divergence in a very synodal and fraternal style. And it's as if we were in a situation which is evolving, so it's not easy at the moment to say what the final report is going to look like. There will be a phase of exchange and discussion after these various modules. There are still going to be some modules to be discussed, and the final report is not there yet, and then it will be submitted to the Assembly. My feeling, but this is just personal as a member of the Synod, and I've said this before and I'm going to repeat, we are in a Synod which is going to be followed by an additional Assembly and another exchange or discussion, so it's probable that the final report or the synthesis report is going to be different compared with the final reports of the other synodal assemblies, as Father Repery was saying. He was referring to the 2018 Synod on Young People, because there's going to be another discussion, so it will be even more similar to an instrumentum laboris, perhaps more complex, and it will be different, I think, from a final synthesis. As far as voting is concerned, there are going to be bishop members and non-bishop members, some clerics, some lay persons, and men and women religious. So we are part of the same communion and the same synodal assembly. So this was explained before. It is an assembly which has a consultative nature. It's a consultative synod, as you know, but the lay members are lay members united by the common baptismal priesthood, and I quote St. Peter's to explain which unites us all. Baptismal priesthood, if you read St. Peter's letter, the first letter of St. Peter, it explains what this is all about. Let us now give the floor to Father Mauro Giuseppe for his response. As far as female priesthood, I think that what the Synod is avoiding, and I say thanks for that, is to address problems by removing some aspects from their context. So this is not this topic is not dominating in our discussion, but what is important is the participation of women in the life of the Church. So how can we recognize better the baptismal dignity of women within the Church? And so, from what I've seen so far, nobody has spoken about female priesthood. We speak about the diaconate. And also the instrumentum laboris points, well, refers to this theme. But I think that the most important thing is not to address this issue in a, and I apologize for using this word, in a journalistic manner, so starting, but we should rather address it from the perspective of what, or the awareness of what the Church is, and the vocation of men and women within the Church, and what it means, what we mean by order, and so on and so forth. And this requires This requires problems to be addressed in a deep and calm way. So I think that the great temptation when you wish to discuss these topics is to be too superficial. So speak about these topics in terms of slogans or groups who claim this or that. This is something that I do not see at the Synod. We do not see this. So we are speaking at a deep level, and I must say, I can say I'm in a small group that speaks about the role of women. So I chose this group, this theme, because in my own order, monks and nuns who belong to we belong to the same order, and also in terms of the governance of the order, for instance, abbots and abbesses are members of the same general chapter, so there are no distinctions or separations, and that is why I thought I could share my own experience, that this is something positive. In other words, living the life of the church. Some people were saying with her two lungs, enriches the life of the church. How this is going to then be expressed when specific problems are addressed is something that I'm not in a position to be able to say, but I feel that everything is going to be faced and addressed, starting from the depth of a global ecclesial conscience, and which is what is important, because the important thing is not so much that we think about specific claims, but that we always think of what is good for the church and for her mission in humanity. And undoubtedly, the theme of women and their role in the church is essential to be able to understand this. But I can't say now what this is going to bring to in terms of the work of the Synod. Thank you, Father. There was somebody at the back of Diane who wanted to ask a question. Someone, sorry, who wanted to ask a question.
Tom Rees from Religion News Service. Mr. Ruffini, you report that some journalists have accessed the Synodal cloud and were able to get documents that have not been made public. So these journalists have access to these documents. Is there any reason why these documents, therefore, cannot be made available to all the other journalists? It just seems fair that if some journalists have access to these documents, then they ought to be made available to all the journalists.
As I said before, there is nothing secret or confidential, but the intention of the General Secretariat of the Synod is to maintain confidentiality on the individual reports from every small group, not because it's a classified document that we are talking about, but because this thing, for some reason, would turn our encounter to pray for discernment into something else, in a sort of public conference. And the Pope, on other occasions, talked about the Parliament. This is the reason, and I've explained what happened, and I have nothing further to add to what I have already said. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Paolo. There is a lady next to Diane. Lia Servino, the Women's Voice.
Dada su compromiso tan grande con las migraciones, con los migrantes.
Your commitment on the topic of migrants, to the topic of migrants in Mexico, has had a very strong impact on us. And I would like to know, we would like to know whether you think that something can be done in order to help families who have been divided or broken up by migrations, women who have been raped, or unaccompanied minors. You have talked about the synodal process in a different way, and I would like to ask you if in this sense we can do, if something more can be done. And then I would also like to ask you if we must continue to journey, to continue listening during the process that is going to continue until the next assembly. So journey while listening to the peripheries. How could we do that, in your opinion? Thank you. Well, I think that the topic and the reality of migration are never going to be sufficiently addressed. It isn't truly possible to understand unless you experience this pain and suffering personally, what we experience on a daily basis through our work. We can speak as witnesses, but it's not the same. It's not the same thing. Listen to persons directly and experiencing their pain. This is totally different. I think that in the Synod there is a great sensitivity vis-à-vis these topics, not just in the small groups, but also during the personal moment. And I was asked many questions by many people who have had similar experiences, similar to my own, and they feel they are challenged. We've seen that there is an ecclesial network, a non-ecclesial network, that allows us to journey together, so that this phenomenon, a phenomenon which represents a true global humanitarian crisis, is kept into account with all its implications and all the values, everything that this means in terms of richness, migration towards different countries. And I hope that we shall continue to speak about migrations and that silence never falls over it. I hope that this cry is listened to, is heard, and that it is sufficiently strong for the Church and the members of the Church to become responsible, and so that we may even, of course, reach the authorities in our society, because I think that this is truly a responsibility for human beings as such. And as to the importance of continuing this synodal process in order to reach the peripheries, the outskirts, I can say that in Latin America we have come to realize that the synodal process had not been sufficiently broad, and it hadn't been able to involve all the peripheries. So I feel we are very much aware of the fact that it is not just a matter of being witnesses or to bring other people's witnesses. What counts is to see the way in which they themselves speak and are witness of their own experience. So it is a matter of listening in an open way, and it is a great challenge that we are going to rise up to until next year. Well, I think this is essential. It is crucial, particularly starting from the villages, from the smallest realities. We must get and reach every place in a capillary way. We must transmit, pass on the message of the migrants so that the entire society may listen to us. I think that this is truly essential. And I'm elderly, and I remember the Second Vatican Council. I wasn't a member of the congregation, but I remember what was said at the time. And at the Puebla meeting, I already lived and worked in grassroots ecclesial communities. And when we tried to explain what would happen in Puebla, the truth is that we realized that people just wouldn't understand what a council was. What was the Second Vatican Council, what had happened in Medellin, so the work consisted in allowing the council to reach people so that in Puebla everybody could understand our message. This is our task, and it is very important indeed. The Synod, the words which are going to come out of the Synod have to reach the grassroots communities in a capillary manner and the peripheries of the peripheries. And it is important that those who live in the peripheries can be witness in person.
Hi, good afternoon. Colleen Dully from America Magazine. I have a question for Mr. Ruffini. My colleague, Zach Davis, asked you a few days ago, he said it sounds like there were different points of view offered from the delegates on various topics, In the past, discussions, especially around sexual identity, can become quite polarized. Do you think that this synod has allowed for better conversations around some of these issues? And if so, what do you think contributed to that? The media fasting, the roundtables, the retreat, etc.? Or do conversations still feel polarized? You told him a few days ago you didn't feel they were polarized. I'm curious if you still have the same answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Colleen.
Grazie, io posso, come sapete,
Thank you. In general terms, I can tell you what I participated in the general congregations and what I could bear witness to through my listening in the group I participated in the general congregation. So what I can bear witness to is that true, there is a serene dialogue, exchange, even though people do not hold the same positions. And also in the small groups, the members are invited to highlight the aspects they disagree on, if there are any. So they mustn't be shy, or they mustn't hide aspects on which there may be a disagreement, as it has happened in the history of the Church. So more than once we heard mention Paul and Peter, and I also did so. It doesn't mean that the Church has not been marked by phases of discussions and thorny ones, but this is what is my experience, but we could perhaps listen also to the opinion of others. But what I can say is that when these topics were addressed, we are halfway through our journey, so there may be, I don't know, more polarized exchanges and less based on communion. But what I can bear witness to is actually the beauty of being able to address these themes in communion. So I've been a journalist in the past, and I can bear witness to the fact that what I'm witnessing is an extraordinary exercise of communion, even in diversity, in differences. There are many topics that may be seen differently depending on one's culture, but we are truly making an effort to understand each other, to listen to each other, to understand each other's reasons, while not remaining in the opinion, staying in the opinion we hold. There aren't just two sides. The Church is multifaceted, but still I can really bear witness to this in the stage in our journey we have. So I think we have come to the end of this briefing. There will be other opportunities for you to ask questions in case they have not been answered today. I would like to thank, first of all, the journalists who have participated in this meeting, the guests who have shared with us their experiences, and Mr. Ruffini and Sheila for helping us to follow this briefing. So thank you again for being here on such on this Saturday with such nice weather.
So that concludes this live broadcast of this press briefing of the 16th Ordinary General Assembly of the Synod of Bishops. Today we heard from Father Mauro Giuseppe Lepori, Abbot General of the Cistercian Order, Sister Maria de los Dolores Palencia Gomez of the Daughters of St. Joseph of Lyon, and Mr. Enrique Arazón Garcia, President of Frate España, which is a Spanish confraternity of people with disabilities. I'm Joseph Tollock. Thank you very much for tuning in, and do join us next time. Laudetur Jesus Christus. Praised be Jesus Christ.
Hey there, Class 8 leavers. The Archdiocesan Youth Office has an exciting event just for you. It is the St. John Paul II Rite of Initiation to Committed Adulthood, RICA 2023. For the boys, there are two groups. Group 1 meets from 4th to 14th November 2023, and then from 19th to 29th November 2023. Both sessions will be held at St. Scholastica Catholic School on Thika Road. There is also another venue at Archangel Archangel Gabriel Mutomo Parish School from 4th to 14th November 2023. Girls, your camp is from 16th to 21st November 2023 and it is at Archangel Gabriel Mutomo Parish School. Group 2 will be from 5th to 10th December 2023 at St. Scholastica Catholic School, Thika Road. To sign up, parents can visit the youth office at the 7th floor of Cardinal OTUNGA Plaza, or you can register online through the links on the Archdiocese of Nairobi Facebook page. Don't miss out.